In this guide, we'll go over all of the actions the Machinist learns from level 50 to 90 in order. We'll go over how each action is meant to be used and, when applicable, the recommended way to use it. We will also summarize changes to the rotation at level 60, 70 and 80. In the summary, we'll take time to outline both an opener and general rotation, as well as cover stat priorities. Please be aware that this guide assumes you have some preliminary knowledge as listed here. Relevant videos can be found in the description or the top right corner. Now then, at level 52, you learn the weapon skill Auto Crossbow, which functions as an AoE alternative to Heat Blast. Auto Crossbow beats Heat Blast on 3 or more targets. At level 54, Split Shot permanently upgrades to Heated Split Shot. This does not change your rotation. At level 56, you learn the ability Tactician, which is a raid-wide defensive cooldown that you should use when anticipating large AoE damage from bosses. You can also use it on large AoE pulls to help blunt the damage for your tank if you think it will help them. At level 58, you learn the weapon skill Drill, which does a massive amount of damage on a 20-second cooldown. You should make sure to keep Reassemble to use on Drill every time it is possible. On 5 or more targets, you should skip using Drill in favor of spamming Split Shot. Keep in mind that Drill's cooldown is affected by skill speed and will always be equal to 8 times your GCD. As such, you can expect to use Drill on every 8th regular GCD. Remember that 5 hypercharge attacks are equivalent to 3 regular GCDs. If the cooldown of Drill is less than 8 seconds, you should try to delay hypercharge to make sure Drill is used on cooldown, and then instead use hypercharge afterwards. Delaying hypercharge also applies to Hotshot. Drill takes priority over Hotshot, while Hotshot takes priority over hypercharge. At level 60, Slugshot is permanently upgraded to Heated Slugshot. This also does not change your rotation. Since level 50, Auto Crossbow is introduced as an AoE alternative to Heat Blast, and then Drill is introduced as a big attack to use Reassemble on, as well as to use every time it is available. Start a fight with Reassemble Drill and then use Hotshot. Beyond that, it will be a few levels yet before we can connect Wildfire to the initial opener. At level 64, Clean Shot is permanently upgraded to Heated Clean Shot, which, due to your single target combo generating battery gauge, means that you should use your single target combo on up to 2 targets. Split Shot is still better to use on 3 or more targets. At level 66, you learn the ability Barrel Stabilizer, which grants you 50 heat gauge instantly. This ability should be used on cooldown, prioritized right after the first charge of Gauss Round and Ricochet. Make sure to get below 50 heat gauge before using Barrel Stabilizer, meaning of course that you should use Hypercharge if Barrel Stabilizer is coming up and Hypercharge is available. If Drill and Hotshot coincide with this reactionary Hypercharge, it is better to delay Barrel Stabilizer. It also enables you to use Wildfire in your opener, which we will detail in the summary shortly. At level 70, you learn the channeled ability Flamethrower, which does a decent amount of AoE damage every second it is channeled. Be aware that any movement, including turning, cancels Flamethrower, and the area of effect is deceivingly short, so while Flamethrower does more damage than Split Shot and Auto Crossbow, it is likely to not hit every target. And the damage difference is not large, so you may find it easier to simply not use Flamethrower at all. Flamethrower introduces a gimmick when a boss disappears mid-fight. If you know where the target will reappear, if you channel Flamethrower beforehand, you can sometimes sneak in a single tick of Flamethrower before you can even press your GCD in time. This can result in a tiny damage increase over the course of a fight, but is unfortunately the most useful feature of Flamethrower. Since level 60, your 1-2-3 combo has been boosted enough that it is better than Split Shot on 2 targets. You also learned Barrel Stabilizer, which finally enables you to fit Wildfire in a proper opener. Start with Reassemble into Drill, weaving Gauss Round and Ricochet, then use Hotshot weaving Barrel Stabilizer. Then do Split Shot weaving Gauss Round and Ricochet again. Then Slugshot and late weave Wildfire, followed by using Clean Shot into weaving Hypercharge. Then do 5 Heat Blasts, alternating weaving Gauss Round and Ricochet as you are able, and finish with Drill. At level 72, you learn the weapon skill Bioblaster, which serves as an AoE alternative to Drill. Bioblaster is better on 2 or more targets, but does a large majority of its damage over time, which Reassemble does not affect. As such, continue to use Reassemble Drill on 2 targets, but on 3 or more targets, use Bioblaster and then either save, reassemble or use it on Spreadshot. At level 74, Gauss Round and Ricochet get an extra charge, making it far easier to use hypercharge windows without wasting any cooldown reduction on them. At level 76, Hotshot is permanently upgraded to Air Anchor, making it do just as much damage as Drill. This means that you can use Reassemble on either Drill or Air Anchor depending on what is available. On 2 targets, use Reassemble on Air Anchor and then use Bioblast in place of Drill. Sometimes the cooldowns of Air Anchor and Reassemble will not line up, in which case Drill should be used instead of course. On 5 or more targets, Air Anchor is only useful for its battery gauge generation, and you may find it better to simply save it for later in these scenarios. At level 78, the potency of Wildfire is doubled, but this does not change your rotation. At level 80, your Rook auto turret is permanently replaced by the Automaton Queen, greatly boosting the damage it does over its duration. It does not change how you use it though. Since level 70, the only significant change to rotation is that Bioblaster can replace Drill on 2 or more targets, and Air Anchor is introduced as an additional option to use Reassemble on 1 or 2 targets. The extra charge on both Gauss Round and Ricochet also makes the opener a bit more frantic, but also makes the overall spending of charges less hectic. At level 82, Spreadshot is permanently upgraded to Scattergun, which generates heat gauge twice as fast and also does slightly more damage. Because of this, you should use Scattergun over your 1-2-3 combo on 2 targets again. Heat Blast is still better than Auto Crossbow on 2 targets, however. At level 84, Reassemble can hold an extra charge, and also your 1-2-3 combo is boosted slightly in potency. Reassemble being able to hold an extra charge means that your opener can reassemble both Air Anchor and Drill. It also means you can hold on to a charge for a while if you need to. The single target combo boost means that you're back to using the 1-2-3 combo on 2 targets again. At level 86, your Automaton Queen's finisher is extended with Queen's Gambit, further increasing the value of battery gauge. This does not change your rotation. At level 88, the cooldown of Tactician is reduced to 90 seconds, although this does not change much for you. At level 90, you learn the weapon skill Chainsaw, which is an AoE attack with just as much potency as Drill on the main target. It also generates battery gauge like Air Anchor. On 2 or more targets, Chainsaws should always be used with Reassemble, and so you should keep a Reassemble specifically for this purpose in dungeons or boss fights with AoE phases. Just like Drill and Air Anchor, Chainsaws should be used on cooldown. To round off, let's look at your attack rotation, starting with an opener example, followed by general rotation including AoE adjustments, and finishing with stat priorities. Up to 5 seconds before combat starts, use Reassemble. Then 2 seconds before combat starts, if you plan to use a tincture, a so-called burst potion, use it here. Start with Air Anchor and weave Gauss Round and Ricochet. Then use Drill, weaving Barrel Stabilizer. Then Split Shot, Slug Shot, and weave another Gauss Round and Ricochet. Then use Clean Shot, weaving Reassemble and Wildfire, and then use Chainsaw, weaving Automaton Queen and Hypercharge. Then 5 Heat Blasts, alternating your Gauss Rounds and Ricochets, and finish the opener with Drill. The reason for the order of Drill, Air Anchor and Chainsaw, including the significant delay of Chainsaw, is related to setting them up to minimize the amount of problematic overlaps throughout your rotation. Let's continue to the general rotation. Use Drill, Air Anchor and Chainsaw on cooldown, and use Reassemble for any one of them when it is available. Remember to weave Gauss Round and Ricochet whenever you have any amount of charges. When your battery gauge is at 50 or above, choose your timing on when to weave it. You can use it immediately or align it with raid buffs to get more value. But if you reach 100 battery gauge, use it before any goes to waste. When the heat gauge is at 50 or above, plan a hypercharge window. Make sure that using it won't delay Drill, Air Anchor or Chainsaw. If Wildfire is about to be available, make sure to have heat gauge to use alongside it. Also, use Barrel Stabilizer when it is available. Usually this means shortly before Wildfire, but it is not out of the question that these 2 cooldowns will drift over the course of a fight. If you try to plan your cooldown usage around your raid team, you can use Wildfire as your 2-minute clock to align somewhat with the rest of the raid's damage boosting buffs. The abilities worth saving are Reassemble, Wildfire and Automaton Queen of course. There are a few things to keep in mind for optimizing in a raid context, and should you be interested in mastering to this extent, I would encourage you to seek out more specialized information detailing how to perform this. But to get you started, there is a common even minute burst that should emerge somewhat automatically if you use your cooldowns as they become available, if you performed the opener correctly. Aside from that, there is some planning with heat gauge and battery gauge. On 2 targets, Bioblaster should replace Drill, and Reassemble should be prioritized to be used on Chainsaw. On 3 or more targets, your 1-2-3 combo, as well as Heat Blast, should be replaced by Scattergun and Auto Crossbow. On 6 or more targets, Air Anchor can be skipped if you believe the battery gauge won't be necessary. Additionally, Reassemble can be used on Scattergun if you reach 2 charges. You should still keep 1 for Chainsaw every time. Finally, regarding stat priorities. In almost every single case, item level is more important than the correct secondary stats, so always pick the gear piece with the higher item level and thus most dexterity on it. After that, Machinist really likes the common critical hit, then determination and direct hit. Critical hit scales better than the alternatives and even boosts the value of Reassemble. Determination and direct hit are almost identical in value, however, direct hit scales negatively with buffs that boost direct hit rate, which tends to be present in a raid team, meaning that determination tends to pull ahead. Skill speed is a really bad stat for Machinists, because while both Drill, Air Anchor and Chainsaw scale with skill speed, your hypercharge windows don't, which means that if you have any skill speed at all, your rotation may drift ever so slightly with every hypercharge. For this reason, if you have 2 pieces of equipment of equal item level, choose the one that doesn't have skill speed on it if you can. Keep in mind that having the perfect stats on gear is not important outside of the most cutting edge of content, and outside of this, it is perfectly fine as long as your item level meets the challenge you are facing. That is all for this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or anything to add, please leave a comment down below. Fun fact, before Shadowbringers, the Machinist's 1-2-3 combo worked very differently. Split Shot had a chance to enable Slug Shot, which in turn had a chance to enable Clean Shot. Machinists also had an ammo system that could ensure these procs and also slightly boosted their potencies.